justice or sentencing advantage to slow walk him back from Mexico to where he doesn't return here till he's 19 years old?
No. Okay, what else?
How much does this situation infuriate you?
How does it infuriate me?
How much?
Well, do I seem infuriated? I don't even know how to answer that.
You do seem very infuriated.
Well, I hope I seem businesslike. I hope that I seem like I recognize the seriousness of this man's misconduct and his mother's misconduct, and I hope that I sound like we're ready to deal with that when he gets here. I wish the system were different. However, our system of law in Texas means that the best result in this case is going to be to get him, in our opinion, into the adult court.
Counselor Tanya Couch, you mentioned the 2 to 10 for the possibility. Will you guys pursue the
We
maximum?
expect to charge her with hindering apprehension, and that is a third-degree felony in Texas. It carries a range of punishment of 2 to 10 years in the penitentiary.
Do you want the full 10 years for it?
I think she deserves to be incarcerated.
What other charges are you looking at?
Hang on.
No, I'm still trying to get clear. So, since his probation violations happened under juvenile, and he comes back and starts at 0. So even if he's transferred to adult court,
He starts at 0 in adult court.
okay, that means he's not going to jail, right?
That is not necessarily true, because when his probation is transferred to adult court, an adult court judge in Texas has the ability, especially on a charge of involuntary manslaughter, which is what his case is, to sentence a defendant under our laws to 120 days in jail, which would be the adult jail, which would actually be a longer sentence than he would get if he were in the juvenile facility. But he would, after that jail time, be supervised for the remainder of his probation. Does that make sense?
Yes. And you would expect him to have an ankle monitor as well as other everything that they can do.
I will be asking for every single possible condition of probation.
Recommendations to the mayor relative to charges concerning those 13 officers that were involved in the East Cleveland shooting. So that's where we are today with that one. Everything is completed, all the reviews of all the videos, all the interviews, all the forensic information that was provided to us by BCI, the sheriff's investigation, East Cleveland's investigation, and also our administrative investigation. All that is completed. We're putting it together to present it to the mayor sometime in mid-January.
Now, just to add a little more onto that, as the director mentioned, the latest review, administrative review, is on 13 officers who were involved in shooting. There were over 60 officers who there were administrative hearings and disciplinary actions taken against and involved in that shooting that were not part of, they didn't actually fire the weapon, but they were part of the chase. And in that, there were terminations, demotions, suspension without pay for periods of time. That has occurred. Now, this is involving the 13 officers involved in the shooting itself. And as the director said, he'll bring those recommendations to me in somewhere in mid-January. Chief Williams, can you explain to them where we are with administrative?
Sit down, please, Chief. Thanks.
Do I need to be in the middle?
Yeah.
Slide over. Okay. The same process that the director talked about with the Critical Incident Review Committee will commence with the Tamir Rice incident. That committee has been reformed, and they will start their review of that incident from start to finish. Once that's completed, and we anticipate it's definitely going to take a shorter time frame than the review of the 13 shooters in the pursuit case. That will be presented to my office in a written report. That report will be reviewed by myself, and then based on the recommendations and the outcome of that report, I'll either hear charges against those officers if charges are recommended, or I will refer that case to the director's office if I deem it necessary.
And what's the distinction from you making a determination and the director?
Well, the chief's office has latitude in discipline up to and including 10 days suspension without pay. The director's office has latitude for 10 days to 30 days suspension without pay, demotion and/or termination. So if, once this report is complete, once their thorough review is complete and forwarded to my office, I will have to make a determination based on that evidence and that review of whether or not that case stays with the chief's office or warrants referral to the director of public safety for review.
And the reason I had both of them talk to you about two different cases, so that you understand that we're concerned about due process, not just process. A lot of what you hear in regards to the public's discontent with these decisions is not just the incident itself and what they believe to be the egregiousness of the incident itself, but also the fact that they believe that the system just goes through a process with a predetermined conclusion as opposed to having due process that has at its core fairness and justice. So I just want to emphasize to you that we're doing this in a due process way, not just going through the motions of a process and already having at the end already determined what we're going to do. I want to be very clear on that. So Blaine, why don't you talk to them about our community engagement, and then I'll wrap it up and then I'll answer questions.
Sure, thank you. We've been working very hard on community engagement in the city of Cleveland. We've been working closely with street outreach workers, clergy, street and block club presidents, and other community stakeholders to do as much as we can to inform the community on the process that the city is taking in order to make sure we move in the right direction. We've also been working closely with these citizens to build a relationship and serve as a liaison with a lot of the protesters that are protesting and speaking out on this, in order to make sure that we help educate them that we respect and totally respect their right to speak out on this issue. But at the same time, we really work closely to try to prevent any, damage to personal property. So we've been really working closely with Clevelanders to define Cleveland, and that's what we basically doing through our community engagement strategy.
And again, it's so that, and the reason why we talk to people about the process and we're transparent and keep people up to date all the time as to how things are going on various cases is so that they completely understand that we are engaged in due process, just not a process, and that there are things that we have to do in order to ensure due process, and some of those things take time. We're not trying to prolong the time, particularly in the Tamir Rice case. We're not trying to prolong that, but we will take whatever time is necessary for us to do the right thing in terms of due process and having this done right. Finally, I'll say before we go to questions, I do want to emphasize that these are incidents, and these incidents are very tragic. And there's no mystery if you watch the news or if you are living in communities and hear people talk. These are very tragic incidents, but they are just that. They're one incident, and people focus on them. And I would want us to really consider these incidents in a context of what I believe is actually going on, not just in Cleveland, but I think across this country, and people are voicing their opinions about it, and they're very upset about it. And that is what they believe to be a lack of fairness, a lack of justice in the system, in the way in which it prosecutes or reviews these kind of incidents. And people are very upset about it, and I believe legitimately and rightfully so. And that is why we spend so much time in Cleveland emphasizing the fact that we're not just doing a process where we already have a predetermined outcome, and we're not trying to support an interest, whether it's the police interest or activist interest or whatever interest. We're really trying to do this in a due process way. So at the end of it, that we know and we believe that we have been fair and we have been just in how we've handled these incidents. That is what we're focused on. So we're available for questions from anybody. And everybody get their turn. I'm here as long as whatever, I'm here for the duration, so you don't have to get anxious. Yes, sir.
Mayor, it's Martin Savage.
Yes, yes.
In the hours now, 24 hours since this decision has been announced, what are you most concerned in the next 24 and 48?
Well, I'm concerned about us getting our process in place and moving expeditiously through our process in a way that people know that there's no time lapse between the grand jury's decision and what we're doing. There's not. That's why the chief is here. So we're concerned about getting that message out to people that whether they agree with the grand jury's decision or not. Process, but it will be one that has at its core due process as part of it.
Do you worry about the protests?
No, I don't worry about protests. People have a right. I mean, people have a right. It is America, and people have a right. They have a right to express themselves and express themselves as to whatever opinion that they have, whether they agree with me or don't agree with me. What they don't have a right to do is do violence to people or to property. That's what they don't have a right to do. But no, I'm not concerned about protests. We actually welcome it, and we provide police protection to them as when they come to Cleveland to protest. That's why what Blaine mentioned, he is constantly in contact with local people who are advocates, local people who have been demonstrators in the past, as to not telling them what to do or not to do, because they're not going to pay attention to that anyway, is more about, look, here's where we are, here's what we're doing, being transparent with them and understanding what we believe are the parameters of the protest. But no, I'm not concerned about protesters. We actually welcome them to some degree. Yes. Right. I'll get it.
Yeah, I know you are very, very proactive in reaching out to the neighborhood, and I get that in a big way. But what are you hearing? What are you hearing?
People are mad. But I'm not just hearing that in Cleveland. I'm hearing that all over the country. People are upset about the actual incident itself, whether it's here in Cleveland or in Chicago or in Ferguson or Baltimore. I can just go on and on. But the underlining anxiety and the underlining upset that they have is about what they believe and legitimately believe is a sense of lack of fairness and a lack of justice. And they just believe that, look, this is predetermined and that there's no, they're just going through the motion. That's what I'm hearing. And so you have the problem with whatever happens, a legitimate concern about the egregiousness of that, and then you have a expression of legitimate concern about the system and whether or not the system's fair, whether or not it's just, and they believe it not to be. That's what I'm hearing. Let me go back here. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Barbara Lowe, ABC News.
Yes, ma'am.
You just said here that people are legitimately mad and upset about perceived lack of fairness and justice in the process.
Right.
Some see as not a due process and perhaps predetermined.
Right, that's correct.
So specifically, in terms of the prosecutor here, and the family, and many people believe that he rigged the system, or where the family has said he's sabotaged the grand jury. Can you comment about that?
No, and I'll tell you why. It's because I'm focused on our process and ensuring that it has at its core due process. If I comment on that one way or another, it becomes the story, and it taints what we do. So the county prosecutor and the grand jury have done whatever they've done, you know, and people have an opinion about that. We are now focused on what we're doing in ensuring that what we do has at its core due process. So that's where we are right now. So I do not have a comment on what the grand jury did or what the county prosecutor did. That's their world. Now it's in our world, and we're going to do what we believe is the right thing in terms of processing this. Yes, sir. I'll come back around.
Mike Tobin with Fox News Channel. Possibly this is a better question for the chief.
Right.
But as you mentioned, that people have a right to be mad.
Right.
How much pressure is bearing down on you and the chief to come down with something punitive against these officers to answer the angry
Well,
crowds?
this is the point I made to you. I'm not swaying one way or another. I got, you know, you have pressure from police and those who like police to do one thing. You have pressure from advocates and those who have a sense of injustice to do another thing. You know, I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on due process. Wherever this goes. You know, I think I've demonstrated, particularly the people, local people will tell you, I think we've demonstrated that I don't throw the police under the bus for political reasons, neither do I throw the public under the bus for political reasons. We're focused on doing this and doing it right. There's been a wrong done in the sense that whether it has been determined that there was no criminal wrong done. Now we'll determine whether or not there's been an administrative wrong done as we overlay this with our policies and procedures and protocol and all these and tactics and all that. And then we'll make a determination. And I will honestly say to you that the external pressure from any group, no matter what it is, will not be of consideration in our deliberation of this or our conclusion. It will not be.
But you're saying that a wrong has been done.
Something happened, whether it's administrative, not criminally, someone has said, the grand jury has said that there's been nothing done wrong criminally. We are reviewing based on what we have seen, whether or not something has been done administratively. A 12-year-old lost his life. Something happened. A 12-year-old died. And in East Cleveland, 2 people died. So we're going to look, and we take that seriously. We do soul searching on these kind of things, and we take that seriously. And we're going to ensure that when we do this, we're going to do it right, with due process. And we're not going to have political consideration based on which group or my political well-being or the chief's political well-being. Chief, you want to add?
Mayor, I think you kind of answered that question. You know, the facts are the facts. And if those facts bear out that there was wrongdoing on the part of the officers procedurally, policy-wise, then we'll take care of that. If those facts don't bear that out, then, you know, it'll go that way. But the committee is put together to review the incident from start to finish and to take into consideration also grand jury testimony. We're going to request those records from the county. The sheriff did an investigation on this. We're going to request their investigation to make sure we're not missing anything. But all that in totality will determine if there was wrongdoing by these officers. And if it bears that out, then we will deal with that in a professional and a respectful and a fair way. And that's all the mayor is saying, and that's all we've done from day one.
I'll get you. Yes, ma'am.
Hillary Golston, WKYC.
Yes, ma'am.
You talked a lot about the process.
Right.
And something that Super Chandra, the attorney for Tamir Rice, has said that there should be some separation between the prosecutor and the grand jury in this case, or in cases like this.
Right.
We have these courts because the prosecutor is working day in and day out with the police. From your perspective, do you think that should happen in the future? Because Tamir Rice, for her statement, said she feels that the system in Cuyahoga County is, quote, corrupt. So do you believe that there should be more separation when we're having this, of course, case in the future? Should we have a special prosecutor come in?
Well, but again, I'm not going to deal with that in specifically. Let me deal with it in a broader sense. I think I'm very clear that the general public, and when I say general public, it used to be a time when it was just a group of people, whether they were poor people or minority people or people who would be perceived as those who would be anti-police, that they felt that there was a sense of injustice to them. There was a sense of a lack of fairness with them. Now what you have a broader group of people who believe the same thing and is more diverse. Diverse in terms of race, diverse in terms of ethnicity, in culture, in terms of income. It's more diverse. So you have a larger number of people now feeling that way. And as a result of our system not functioning in what I believe a due process way, you now have these suggestions coming forward. And they're suggesting we have state legislators who are talking about eliminating the grand jury's investigation, or not the grand jury, but a county prosecutor's investigation when there's a police officer involved in the use of deadly force. And to have that go to the state and have the state then appoint a special prosecutor. Well, all this is happening because people have no more faith and confidence in the system as a whole, and I think there's some legitimacy to that. There's some legitimacy to that.
How much legitimacy?
Well, look, again,